start by asking you about your new book, Bastards of the Reagan Era, which is due out from Four Way Books in October. Can you just tell us a little bit about the book and the inspiration behind it?
I don't know if I would say inspiration behind it. I might say desperation behind it, but it's essentially, it's weird. The book started with a different title. It started with Near Burn and Burton, and I was writing these poems, and I started to feel like it was a book. The poems were sort of about D.C. and PG County, and about some of my experiences and some just people I knew and things I imagined. And then I realized that the book was kind of talking to an era, and the book ended up being me talking to an era, and it was talking to sort of the '80s, but also was encompassing from, all the way up to the point where 2010, 2011, where I had students who were, 12 years old, 13 years old, and the book was sort of me having a conversation with what I imagined the war on drugs and the influence that the war on drugs had on all of our lives. And then I felt afraid though. I felt like technically like I had wrote this book and it was this sort of technical thing, and I had this fancy name, Near Burn, Near Burton. I really liked how it sounded, but I felt like even with the title of the book, I was afraid to like aggressively go at the issues that I wanted to confront. So I changed the name to Bastards of the Reagan Era in part because I felt like I wanted the book to announce itself, and I wanted the book to really make a statement in a way that I admitted not needing like approval from the standard places that poets tend to want approval from. So, institutions, people who award fellowships, people who award prizes, your friends who writers. I wanted the book to say something to regular people on the street who had a sense of what the world was like, and at least had the imagination to deal with like what the world might be like. And I wanted the book to be able to present this challenge to them.
The original title, Near Burn, Near Burden,
Yes.
it has a rhythmical quality, it has an alliterative quality, so it has a way of sort of announcing itself formally as poetry. And perhaps the shifting from titles to the title Bastards of the Reagan Era indicates that you are approaching your poetry differently in a formal or technical level.
So the title, I actually think that's true, that the title Near Burn, Near Burton is almost a sort of formal announcement. It almost announces itself as poetry, where Bastards of the Reagan Era with like the all black cover doesn't. I wanted it to be muted. I wanted that quality at least to be muted. But I think technical proficiency has really little to do with, that's not true. It's not that technical proficiency has little to do with meaning of poetry, but I think that when I want somebody to read the poems, I don't want the first thing that they think about to be the technical proficiency. And I also think, Shaheed reads his own poem. I think when that announces itself, it doesn't, it does. I deal with form a lot, I write in form a lot, but I like to think that the form is a vehicle for content. And so, it's like if you watch basketball, when you see the backdoor cut lead to the alley-oop, you get pleasure if you know what a backdoor cut is. You get pleasure from like how well that was executed, but you also get pleasure from just the excitement of the play. And if you're watching the game with somebody who doesn't know and doesn't recognize the backdoor cut, they'll be just as excited when it happens. And then when you say, yo, but did you see the backdoor cut and how that was set up? Then they might be a little bit more excited, but it's not as if like they needed to know how the play was run to enjoy watching it. And so I think that's how it is. At least that's how I want it to be with poetry, and that's how I imagine it to be. The vehicle for getting the alley-oop is the backdoor cut. It doesn't happen without the backdoor cut. The vehicle for me getting sort of the meaning across, the vehicle for me finding a way to capture my words and to put them in the right order and to put them, and to make them create the right cadence when I say them and hopefully when others say them. That's to me, that's different ways of playing with form and rejecting form. And I need that. But I like to think that the person who's sitting down and reads the poems doesn't have to know these things. They don't have to know that, the title poem is written in blank verse. Like nobody ever has to know that. I mean, I just said it just now because I thought you would appreciate it, but nobody actually has to know it. But it's really good though if I read it and somebody who will recognize it hears it, because then they have pleasure in multiple ways. It's both the pleasure in terms of the complexity and the directness and the sort of bluntness and just the words and everything that they convey. And also to say, oh man, I hear that. You know, I hear that form. I hear that.
The other thing I noticed is that you have multiple poems with the same title, For the City That Nearly Broke Me. What's going on with that?
The reason that all of the poems had the same title was two. One is me imagining it as an epic that I was trying to write, but I couldn't because it was too much pain. It was too much something. So I couldn't get past the first page of what would have been an epic narrative of, you know, Black life in Prince George's County, Maryland, between 1980 and 2010 or something, right? And it would have had all of these characters in it, and it would have been rich, and it would have tried to tell this story, but it kept being cut short because of the things that were in every individual story, like forced me to pause, and then it will become another book or another poem. Another way to think about it is, you know, it's just me literally writing the same poem again and again and again, and it's me trying to say the same thing again and again and again, but not being able to say the same thing. And so that was what it is.
This idea of trying to say the same thing again and again makes me think of trauma, the way that individuals who've experienced trauma revisit that moment of trauma. And I wonder if there's something at work with the trauma that African American communities were experiencing during that time and continue to experience.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was, like, I don't know if it was necessarily me confronting. I know it was me confronting trauma, but I don't know if it was me, like, this thing being inescapable as much as this thing being inexplicable and unavoidable, and me wanting to write about it and say it, and then every time I try to say it, I find that I have to revisit this other thing. And also, in like weird ways, you know, I was thinking that and I do think the book is dark, but I think it's like something else in there too, you know, and it's hope, but it's something else. You just push, and the people who are like, I noticed this one poem, and I'm like, I'm talking about this kid who brother gets killed right when President Obama is elected, and but in the poem he doesn't leave, even though he's living in chaos, you know, and I think it's something valuable in staying, and I think that's one of the things that the poem conveys is how, you know, he stays even if it seems like it's chaos everywhere. So I think the book itself is trying to make some kind of statement about what it means to stay. Or, I mean, I think that's true, but the other part of me also thinks that you write the poems is sort of the best way that you know how, and you try to make them say everything that they need to say, and then once they've said it, that you actually no longer have control over. Like if I try to give you a stylized, edited version of what each poem means, I couldn't, because I think each poem means more than the sum of my summary.